Hi everyone, it's Friday again, which means I am your host. If you can't remember, my name is Janet. This whole entire week, everybody's been talking about their favorite authors and books/series, so I'm going to be no different. I'm going to start out with the books that overlap with some of the other writers, because as friends and as writers, we probably read a lot of the same things. I will start off with this one. You will recognize this as On Writing by Stephen King. Caitlin had this earlier in the week. This was the easiest one for me to get to, but I will read anything Stephen King. He has a way of pulling you into his worlds and making something mundane and cliche into something original and twisted. I love his books because I always feel like I'm still in that world and that mindset once I put the book down. They are scary, and quite frankly, it's really hard to creep me out, and he's able to do it. And also, with On Writing, it's a great way to look inside the mind of a very successful writer and see where his inspiration comes up from and where his confidence comes from in his writing. So, very, very good if you're even considering just starting writing. I do suggest picking this book up. Second, this is Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire. It is the first book of the Vampire Chronicles. Earlier in the week, Caitlin brought up The Vampire Lestat, which is the second book of the series. I just picked this one because it's the first one, so you guys can see what the first one is. I love the entire Vampire Chronicles. I love Anne Rice. She has an amazing way of making sure that all the details and everything she writes has a purpose and a reason. There's no extra stuff in there. It all has a reason, which is amazingly hard to do. Especially if you like vampires, you get traditional sense of vampires along with an original twist. So it's something different, perhaps. At least in my opinion. Because I read a lot of vampire books, and this is still one of my all-time favorites, and I've read them numerous times. So yeah. Last but not least, Harry Potter. This was the only one I could find with a dust cover at the moment, because I wanted a picture. But I can also say this is one of my favorites out of the series. This is The Half-Blood Prince. It's, as Erin said earlier, she's having a hard time picking her absolute favorite one. So am I. But this can be considered in my top choices for them, I guess. So, yeah, just about everybody's heard of Harry Potter. So, if you don't like reading, since some of them are kind of big, at least go see the movies. They're doing a pretty good job on them, though there is stuff in here that makes things maybe a little bit clearer. But, yeah, Harry Potter. Now, this next one is something from my childhood that I've read 20 to 30 times, probably. I don't normally keep young adult writing in my repertoire, just because, I don't know, I kind of feel like it's forced a lot of the times, but this is one that I really, really, really love. It would be The Castle in the Attic. It's an older story, very thin, quick read. I suggest anybody picking this up. It's fantasy. You'll notice I have a lot of fantasy books in this. Basically what happens is this boy is gifted a castle, in which comes in a knight as well. The knight comes to life, and he tells of this giant battle going on between forces of good and evil, and this evil wizard and dragon and stuff like that. And he kind of gets sucked into this world. And kind of an interesting note is that things don't always aren't always what they seem. Let's go with that. There are some definitely twists in here that are really, really interesting, but I don't want to tell you what they are because it would kind of give some of the story away. So, yeah. Get Castle in the Attic, pick it up, read it really, really quick. You're not going to have any problems with it whatsoever. Next one, you'll notice I have a lot of older books in here. I can't help it. They are some of my favorites. The Last Unicorn. Also made it into a movie, which I guess if you don't like to read is a good way to get to know the story. probably one of my all-time favorites. I don't even know how many times I've read this. If you don't know the story, it's a story about a unicorn who believes that she is the last one, and she goes in search of them, and there's an adventure. She meets up with some friends, eventually gets turned into a human, and it's a really, really fun, very poetic story. It's absolutely amazing. It's a little bit harder to get through, a little bit older writing style, but it's so eloquent and so beautiful to read, so I really do suggest it. Now, this one has to go with authors more because I've read every single one of these books, so you get to see some of it, and don't be surprised by the size of this book itself. It's a collection of 3 in 1, so yeah. R.A. Salvatore. This is the Dark Elf trilogy itself. R.A. Salvatore is an amazing writer. I don't even know why, to tell the truth. I've read his books since I was little. They're very well written. It's fantasy. I just love them. He writes, I guess he's not really poetic and stuff. It's just, I can't even describe it. It's just my type of story. So, I do suggest checking them out. It's a really, really, really long series of books. It's called The Forgotten Realms. Anybody who plays games might actually remember playing games related to the Forgotten Realms. So it's really hard to decide which stories I like the best, I guess. One of my favorites is the Cleric Quintet. It's kind of a side story off of this one in the Icewind Dale trilogy. It's really, really interesting. It's the way he writes, the details, and the characters and everything is just wonderful. They're so in-depth, you know everything about them, and you feel like you could be right there with them. His description is fantastic. So, again, R.A. Salvatore, any of these. This is the first part of any of the book series, so usually good to start there, but you can start most of them pretty much anywhere that you want, but really good series, and the Cleric Quintet is kind of off its own as well, so yeah. Another book, young adult. There are a few that have weaseled their way into my repertoire. Another one is The Thief. It's, again, quick, easy read. I really do suggest it. It's about a thief named Jen. He basically gets hired to go steal something from the gods. And so he gets saved out of prison just to do what he was put in prison to do. It is a great, great story. I can't really tell you too much about it. Because it gives the storyline away, because you find out the story behind the gods and goddesses and why all this trouble and everything's going on. Again, really, really good book. Quick, easy read. Go pick it up. Yeah. I have to do my nerdy moment because we all know I am such a nerd, as judged by my first video. We have manga. One of my favorite vampire games. This is one of the ones that I probably can actually show you. It has a nice cover. I can't help it. This is basically a story about a vampire lord who gets turned into this little, who gets reincarnated into this little cat creature. And he's basically, in order to come back, he's trying to find the closest living ancestor of the man who killed him. And that's all I really can tell you. It's a really, really nice story. I can actually see it actually have been written into a book, but they illustrated it, which is always fun. So I do suggest at least looking this one up. Last but not least, I'm not sure if you can read that. It's Bram Stoker's Dracula. This is kind of where I got into vampires. again, it's not the easiest read in the world because it's older style English writing, but it's really good in my opinion, especially if you like reading vampire novels, to know where it all started, where somebody started writing about it. It's, again, very poetic, can be a little hard to get through, just because it takes a little while for our mind to kind of comprehend what's actually being said. If you can locate this one, this is the Essential Dracula. This is the one that has all the numbers and bullets that kind of explain what something's meant. So, yeah. There's a couple books that I don't have with me. It's, just because I need to mention them. I'm not going to go into detail because this is getting really, really long. I have a tendency to talk a lot. One is the Dragon Chronicles. It has Dragon's Milk, Flight of the Dragonkin, and Sign of the Dove. Another one is Tale of Two Cities. Again, older style, English writing, so it can be a little hard to get through, but it is amazing. And then we have, something that I'm reading right now. It's called Dragon Champion by E.E. Knight. It's turning out to be really good. The story is actually in the perspective of one of the dragons, so very, very interesting in that respect. I don't know what the series is called off the top of my head, and I apologize for that, but Dragon Champion, look it up. So I guess that is the end, otherwise I'm going to run way over, and there's no way this is going to fit on YouTube. So next week, according to what I am understanding, is that we are going to be talking about kind of our workspaces, what allows us to get into our writer zone, and how we end up doing that. So join us in next week where Aaron will start it out, and I will see you next week. Bye!